let's understand your appreciation of what is going on with the ECG as far as the report and the orders from the PURC are concerned.
First and foremost, Samson, let me just tell you that this is the sheer indiscipline. The sheer indiscipline. And I'll explain to you why I'm making that point. Look, you have a company, and the shareholder says, I want to audit a particular account because that is at the heart of the survival of that sector. Somebody is appointed to audit it. And you, as the person who manages the account, you refuse to make documents available. That's the first aspect. Secondly, you have a situation where the president, who is really the main man for this whole thing, when we talk about the shareholder, tells you, run a single account. Then you refuse. And indeed, not only are you maybe you're running 7 or you are running, actually it's 37 accounts. You're running 37 accounts. You cannot describe this thing anywhere apart from indiscipline. But to come to the main facts, look, something. The very reason why ECG is forced to subject itself to the cash waterfall mechanism is because of the fact that simply they cannot account for the power that they buy. And because they cannot account for the power that they buy, the revenues they get cannot even settle all the bills. And so then you have the account, that what they call the cash waterfall mechanism.
Did you mean to say they cannot account for the power they sell or they buy?
They cannot account for, you see, okay, so let me put, that's a tricky question. So they buy power. So they buy it. So let's say they buy 100 Ghana cedis. They cannot account for the 100 Ghana cedis of power that they now onwardly sell. They cannot account for that. And the reason is because if you look at their losses, if you have a loss that is between 32-34%, so I have an issue. If you buy about 100 Ghana cedis worth of power, you are losing roughly about 34 Ghana cedis. And therefore, you only have 66 that will have to take care of all the players who have contributed in bringing the power, and then you dealing with it. So they cannot account for that. And that is why the cash waterfall mechanism was put in place. Indeed, the very reason why they had to bring PURC in is that even though this is a mechanism that came in from 2017, a lot of the players, particularly the IPP, said that there was no transparency in the way it was being administered. The IPPs were always asking that, look, if I know that, yes, there's a formula that has been dealt with, including even you, ECG, you are part of the formula that has been put. That I know that anytime the money comes, this is the way we are supposed to distribute it. But at first, we'll have to know what is the total amount that is in the pot. It is only when I know the amount that is in the pot, then we can have a situation where we can distribute it fairly. In the first place, the players themselves, whether it is a level A beneficiaries, and that's the IPPs, or the state-owned agencies that fall under the level B, they simply do not know how much falls into the kitty. And the reason why they do not know is because ECG is simply not transparent. And so I'm not surprised that PURC is a system that if you say that part of your money, you use it in fuel procurement, let us see whether you had a directive from the state, and in this case, whether Ministry of Energy or Ministry of Finance, that use part of the receipts that you have gotten in procuring fuel. Let's see your fuel, the fuel contracts that you signed with those who were supposed to supply the fuel. Let's see what about the invoices that were there. Tell us what the quantities were. These are very simple questions that for running a state institution like ECG, you simply should have this data anywhere you go in terms of the offices. So for the ECG not to be able to supply this, it becomes a bit problematic. And that is why some of us have always been worried. If you recall, just before this current exercise that was conducted, and I'm talking of the one that they just did and came and disconnected Parliament, and they are threatening other hospitals. There was an initial one that was done, the one before this. They have said that their target was that they were supposed to they were trying to collect about 7 billion Ghana cedis. Out of that, when they finished the exercise, they announced 5.7 billion Ghana cedis. As to how that 5.7 billion Ghana cedis was used, nobody knows. In fact, a bit of questions that we gave to ECG when they came to meet us as a company, this is what they said. They said because at that time, one, we had curtailment of gas coming from the west. Two, because of the fact that we was also being scheduled to go under maintenance, they needed to buy liquid fuel for the generating plants, particularly those generating plants that were running dual fuels. You know, there are some of our plants that can run both diesel and light crude oil or gas. And so they bought liquid fuels for that. If that is the case, show us evidence of it. Show us evidence that you actually use these monies to buy what you said you used to buy. So yes.
Why? And they couldn't show the evidence?
They have not. It's part of the reason why PURC is conducting this particular thing through PricewaterhouseCoopers. It is part of the reason why the auditor is auditing these things. Because nobody seems to know where these monies come and where they go. Because look, in January, when you saw the part, at least even if it's not conclusive, if you have a situation where for the level A, and these are the people who have been threatening us for God knows how long, you will say that for the state-owned agencies, you can find a way of massaging them, even though you are even collapsing them. But for the level A, what do you call it, beneficiaries, that's the IPPs, you were supposed to pay 6 of them. You ended up paying 4, at least from the data that the PwC saw, the 4. And instead of paying somewhere around 308 or maybe as it 316 or thereabout $1 million, you only paid $120 million just to 4 companies. And what Ben Boachi said is true. One of the things they do is that anytime there's a crisis, anytime there's a threat, particularly from the IPPs, they look at individual faces and say, look, I know that this person does XYZ. If I pay this person, you'll be able to give me this amount of power at this particular time. They choose and pick as to who they pay. Meanwhile, these are all people who have invested in their businesses. These are people who must have operational, cost being taken care of. But you do not do it.
You said they had paid the level A entities, the IPPs, only how much instead of 300 plus?
So per the documents that were made available, only 120 out of about 340 or 315 million dollars.
The understanding we have from our multiple checks is that from August to December, they had paid the IPPs to the tune of $305 million US.
Why did you get that your information from? Because if you are stating a source, let me know what the source is.
The source is the ECG.
So this question is to you. Because the point, so that's why would I be taking ECG source? Why would I be taking, if ECG states that this is the amount of money they have paid, let the data be made available for all of us to see. That's just the whole idea. The fact that they say that if I come and tell you, if you assuming that I have a mortgage on my house, and maybe I still owe an outstanding of about $25,000, and then I get up and say, I paid $20,000. Meanwhile, the recipient or whoever is auditing that particular mortgage arrangement says that I'm not paying that amount because the data does not support it. How on earth would you get that? Why would I be taking the figure that you have given? I am looking at the audited figures that have been given and the very serious part of it. And that's the point that he was making.
Okay.
What's the name? Mr. Abubakar. Look, if you look at some of the state agencies, it's becoming more serious. Greco, for example, they are not being paid. Samson, if you say you are using multiple sources, let me give you other sources to go to. Go to Bui now. You know, usually Bui even invoices in dollars because of the fact that they have to do the repayment for the dam, the construction of the dam. As we speak now, Bui, in about 2 months continuously, had to go for a bank overdraft just to pay workers because they didn't even have money. Not to talk of investment, just workers. You go to Greco, they are equally doing the same thing, overdrafts to pay workers. It tells you how they have become very, very cash-strapped. Not because of anything, but by virtue of the fact that you have an agency who collects all the money and who decides that, look, I have said that I want to pay you X, I want to pay you Y, instead of what has been predetermined. And so, in my very humble opinion, I think that, yes, PURC, to a very large extent, what they have started doing under Ismail, I think they are doing a very good job. They must insist those orders that have been issued. I believe that Dubik, who is a lawyer, should appreciate that this is by the law. The law says if they issue this, respond. They should make the data available and let's all query the data and know as to how these monies are going. Because you see, look, something just to conclude, because I know you want to make me conclude. If you see the level of debt debt that are being piled as a result of the actions of ECG. Already from day one, we will definitely be filing debt because they cannot account for the power that is there. That being said, even the money that people were even applying it to pay to retire some of the debts and some of the newly occasioned debts, we will not be in the situation that we are in. And it is because of the simple indiscipline of one organization.
Okay.
We find ourselves in this.
Thank you very much for your time, Edward Bawa.